Thank you, Justin. A very warm welcome to everyone to our next fireside chat. I have with me Detlef. Detlef is a very senior executive on the automotive industry, and I'll request him to introduce himself. Over to you, Detlef.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm absolutely excited to be here with all of you around the world. These are interesting times. My name is Detlef Juerss. I'm currently heading up the engineering organization and the commercial marketing organization for Marelli. Marelli is a global tier 1 company that consisted since 1.5 years of the former Magneti Marelli, a well-known Italian company, and Calzone Kasai, a very well-known Japanese tier 1. So it's a very interesting position to drive technology forward and create value for our customers. And I'm absolutely too excited to talk about that right here and today.
Excellent. Thank you, Detlef. Firstly, very honored and humbled to have you here with us today. And it's very apt to discuss the topic of the design of the future, a look inside the future car, where you are at the helm of innovation, enabling that journey for many of automotive companies globally. Many years ago, I would say 5 years ago, the whole world order of automotive industry changed. There were multiple strategic events which automotive industry experienced, and because of which there was a significant push to autonomous, there was a significant push to electrification, there was a lot of debate around new business models, and there was an emergence of the shared service concept as well. So today, I wanted to take that discussion forward with you, Detlef, and let me start with my first question to you. Given the impacts of technology and disruption which is being driven through it, with autonomous, with electrification, where do you think the auto industry is heading? And in that context, how does it change the future of the car? It'd be great to get your perspective.
That's of course a huge question, and I hope the audience has 6 hours time to discuss that. But no, really, the auto industry has gone through the most increasing speed of change since the invention of the automobile itself. The topics of electrification, of connectivity, of autonomy are really huge. And I always love to see that from a consumer perspective. How can consumers profit from these new technologies? How can consumers make better use of their time inside of a vehicle? And that's how I always have a look at the market changes. Of course, the recent challenges with the global pandemic have caused major disruptions to all markets. But I do think that the overall trends towards electrification on the one side, because of enabling technologies, and I think this is kind of the theme that specifically in a conference like this, we do want to talk about. The enabling technologies and the enabling new inventions that really make these cars happen, that they are relevant for consumers and customers. Because on the terms of electrification, if we have low range, if the cars are not fun to drive, obviously consumers will think 5 times if they're initially spending more money on a car, so it has to attract them. But we are seeing finally that market breaking through. All major OEMs are having really exciting products in their portfolio. Obviously being in the forefront of a tier 1, we have insight to amazing cars that are coming here very soon on the markets. So the whole electrification will see a huge push. Of course, let's not discuss hybrid right now. I think we'll come to that later. The second big domain, obviously, is the whole connectivity topic. And it comes back to what I said in terms of what does it do for the consumer? He wants to use his time in the car on the one hand side. So the whole connectivity of connecting the driver or the passenger or the passengers to the outside is huge. And then on the other hand, so to just have him spend time, the valuable time that he's in his car doing something or in his transportation, means of transportation, so that the consumer can do something meaningful with that time. And that business, as everyone knows here on the call, is becoming huge. Transportation as a service in general, and what we're doing with the data that comes in and out of the car, is a totally new business segment, and it's going to be really exciting as well. And then lastly, same thing again, the whole assisted and autonomous driving, also that will become a real benefit for the consumer. If the consumer can drive on the highway and can do something else versus having to watch the traffic, is a huge benefit. Obviously, not only for the safety, because obviously still a lot of accidents happen with people being distracted while driving. And secondly, obviously, it really contributes to the overall safety of what we're doing. So the markets will go towards consumer-friendly products, and that is electrification. It is additional services on the connectivity side, and it is assistant. And I always call them like level 5 autonomy is going to be a different topic again, but there's huge potential for also their transportation as a service. Just think about, you have the convenience of ordering your robot taxi on your app, and you know it's going there, and you know it's safe, and you know it's clean. That will be a huge value to consumers all over the world.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that perspective. And I feel a little jealous that you are on the forefront of getting the insights of the cars coming out. I'm personally a car buff, so it's always very intriguing to see what the future holds. But as you rightly pointed out, Detlef, that this is the pace of innovation is causing a new engineering challenge. And engineering is at the core of driving the shift, driving this change. And as you lead from Marelli, do you want to share with the audience a perspective as to how engineering needs to change in the industry to enable the shift? And secondly, if you want to just give a context to how you are driving that in Marelli, I'm sure audience would love to hear that.
Yeah, and it's a very good topic. If again, I'm coming from classic mechanical engineering. When I graduated half a century ago, almost, no, when I graduated back then, we didn't even think about, as mechanical engineering, the use of artificial intelligence, neural networks, even the whole talking to the other side, being the electronic guys. That was a totally different topic. No, I think the big change of this industry is that from an engineering perspective, and even from a skills perspective, and this is a broad range. Number one, engineers today have to be open to collaboration. Being an automotive engineer will no longer be sufficient in the challenges of the future. Like we said, the classic automotive engineer is not skilled in neural networks, in sensor technologies, in microelectronics, in battery chemistry, and even in complicated architecture on the software side. So the whole topic of expanding the systems view is huge. There will no longer be a single mechanical problem. That mechanical problem, or that challenge, or that problem statement, can only be solved between multiple disciplines. If you just think about the challenges in an electric vehicle, you have thermal issues totally beyond anything we ever had seen before on the battery side, on the electric motor side, how to cool these systems while there's huge currents and voltages in that system. To have the battery management system and the motor or the inverter have to be intelligent on the use case. So we're always talking software in combination with electronics, in combination with thermal, in combination with energy management, in combination with so many other problem statements, and last, right, mechanical. So the interaction of know-how and interaction of systems knowledge, how these things come together, will be huge. And that triggers a lot of things. That triggers the education of an engineer for the future will look totally different. The thought process of developing cars will have to be totally different. The way we're compartmentalizing, putting different compartments, sorry, my English, the themes today. So even the setup of your organization will become different, because the way of collaborating will be a totally different one. And just this conference here already gives us a little bit of a taste of what this will look like, because no longer can we rely on a couple of hundred engineers sitting in one room, because we'll just have totally different skill sets. So there is a technology theme here. There's an overall theme of how we would do lean, agile development in global teams. So not only is there a discussion around what are the capabilities, but also how do people work together going forward on the engineering or product development side. It's going to be really exciting.
Got it. Very, very insightful, and it's interesting to see the shift from a mechanical engineering centricity to a software, but still retaining the core elements of automotive technologies. And I'm presuming Marelli is on the leading edge of it.
Yeah, well. Yeah, right. So yeah, I forgot that part of the question. No, and Marelli is doing exactly the same thing. So it's exactly the topic of breaking up these business units or these departments that we're still having in our organization. And today we're still very much in departments, and I'm just calling them silos. And there is a conventional powertrain silo, right? There's an interior silo, there's an electronic silo, there is a lighting silo, and then there's an electric powertrain silo. And my theme is not only to break up these silos and more talk about capabilities and collaboration between those silos. I'll just make a couple of examples. Even on conventional powertrain side, if you look at an electronic control unit of the engine, there is probably bigger cybersecurity challenges, so software challenges in that division than there is anything else, because everything else we know very well. Or on the electric powertrain side, like I mentioned, people that formerly did radiators now have to talk about energy management, thermal energy management from areas where there's too much energy. We're going to pumping energy where there's too little. So the whole collaboration has to be totally different. That's the one dimension. And the second dimension is this can only work if you're having a partnership network. So no automotive, I'll just say it, OEM or tier one can challenge, can solve the challenges of future technology shift by themselves. We have to go outside. We have to go outside of our industry, and that's what Marelli is doing. We are looking and have successfully founded partnerships with global players, with global technology players, with software experts, with chip manufacturers, because the challenges of the future are no longer the good old car challenges. They are multi-industry challenges. And that's how the industry is changing. If you're not having partnerships, if you're not collaborating globally, cross silos, you will fail. And obviously there is a communication dimension to that, right? How do you even combine all these people and these knowledges that they speak the same language, even the same process language, development process language, which will also change, right? The development processes that we had in the past for automotive with mechanical testing and more testing and more testing will no longer be the way we can collaborate in the future. So Marelli is actively looking on all these fronts, and we're very busy in also showcasing that to the world, how Marelli can continue to lead in the forefront of this ever-changing race for technology.
Very insightful there. In fact, that was my next question on the criticality of partnerships, and you already touched upon it. So let me ask a tangential question on that. This is in context of an engineer who's coming out of an institute today, and he or she is looking to begin her career or his career. They were looking at Google's and Facebook's and the software companies, and they felt automotive was yesterday's career. What would be your advice to them who are listening to this fireside chat?
Well, I think that goes a little bit along the lines of what I just said. There is no longer a software company. There is no longer a car company. There is no longer even a home appliances company. Today's work is really a network environment. And if I can only give one piece of advice to any young engineer, regardless of mechanical or software or electronics or whatever, it's be open to the changes, create your network of team members, and definitely outside of an industry, because I think it's becoming more and more obvious that this world has changed, and the way we're collaborating and doing business around the world has changed. And communication skills, it's more a question of how do you find that piece of information versus how do I create that piece of information, and creating these networks and being open to collaborating across countries, across cultures, across technologies, across businesses will become the key factor. So it's really that openness of combining know-how and understanding the challenges of the guys that write software code. How does that apply to a mechanical problem? Because these things will no longer be two problem statements, it'll be one. So I think the openness, and a lot of universities, by the way, are starting to see this, but is our educational system already up to speed to support the needs of young talent going forward? I think we still have a long ways to go, but global communications like these really help to foster that. And there are platforms where young engineers, young businessmen can connect nowadays with old people like us, and I think that's really important, right? I can only recommend reach out, and even if you're declined on LinkedIn, maybe the next guy will. And trust me, we are looking for people that can make a difference, and people that reach out, open to business opportunities, are open to technology challenges of the future, will be successful.
I can relate to that because at Wipro, in our automotive journey, the kind of talent and skills we're hiring has completely changed what it was a few years ago. So I've been given a few-minute warning here. So I'll just start last question. I know time passes when you're enjoying the conversation and learning as well from your point of view or from your perspective. Now coming to the role of India, as we are at NASSCOM ER&D Summit, and you are not new to India. You have a strong connection to India, both professionally and personally. Would you like to share what are the challenges and opportunities for the Indian ecosystem in context of this journey, and what the Indian ecosystem should be looking at in this context? That would be very helpful. And then after that, we'll wrap up with my last question.
Great. So many people that know me know that I'm spending a lot of time and have in my past been always a big fan of engineering tech centers all the way to the late 90s. In my previous roles, I was always a big fan of growing India from a technology perspective, and I'll tell you why. There is, of course, a great work ethic, which I think is obvious. There is an amazing set of talent that is available in India. But we're shifting there. And let's all be honest here on this call. 20 years ago, it was all about the hourly rate. It was all about the low cost portion of this. That has, I think, totally changed. And then the fact that we two are talking here is nowadays a technology game, where we're having collaborations with technology companies that can connect around the world. And I'm not saying India is the center of the world, but actually for what we're doing as Marelli, there is a certain, and even in my previous roles, there is a certain centerness of India in connecting Asia Pacific, China, in connecting Europe, and in connecting even the Americas, despite the challenges of time zone. But I really think that India has become the melting pot of technologies, and having that availability of talent and hardworking people just fosters that. But like I said, this is now really the availability of having the knowledge of the best of the other three worlds combined is something that makes India very special. And I can only say the journey, and then obviously there's tons of very, very well-known technology companies that have originated or are originated and domiciled in India, but are definitely global companies, right? And this is not an advertisement for the Tata Technologies and the Tech Mahindras and the L&Ts of the world, but definitely, or the Wipros of the world. But if you just look at that context, or the Infosys of the world, but if you look at that context, these are now all technology companies. They're no longer service providers. These are technology companies. And that's how the industry sees that. It's really that melting pot, being fast at turning around problem statements and really connecting the rest of the world together is really something that I think not only Marelli sees, but the broader industry obviously sees, given the success of these technology players in the world.
Thank you, Detlef, for that context. I know Wipro is very proud of the journey working with you in the transformation. You typically show us the vision. You put a device saying, this is the future of automotive. Do you want to show us that device of yours, which kind of in a very simplified way reflects what the automotive of the future is? And that's the innovation challenge you're solving.
Yeah, and again, there's lots of anecdotes here, also from other technology companies, even from Elon Musk here as a Tesla leader and SpaceX leader, and I think he's probably in the forefront of challenging, and he's always holding up his iPhone or his mobile phone, not to make any advertisement, because if I just look at the computing power in this device, and if I just look at what less of a computing power we're currently driving around in our cars with, and what size of electronics are needed there, and if you just look at the architecture, in this case, the software architecture and the thought process around that, it's so far advanced from what automotive in general is currently having. So coming back basically 360 to how we opened this discussion, we as auto industry have to be just open to challenging ourselves and looking left and right what the world is doing, and questioning ourselves, is it really the right way to do these things? And then obviously the success here of Tesla in certain technology domains is exactly because they challenged the way stuff was done in the past. And I think to all the stories we had over the last 20 minutes, this is exactly the theme. Let's just think out of the box. How would this look like if I was in the networking industry, or in the telecom industry, or even in the consumer electronics industry? So just right, why fairs like CES or NASSCOM here are so interesting because we are seeing what other industries are doing on the tech domain field. And like I said, it cannot be done alone. And I'm already excited about learning and continuously learning, even in my old age, about new technologies and how things are done on the other side of the business. So I'm excited. I wish this conference good luck. I think it's showing us the way of communicating is the key, collaborating globally and across borders and businesses and technology domains will be the key going forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Detlef, for really sharing some very deep insights. And coming from you brings in the detailed color and perspective, which service providers like Wipro are always very eager to. And I'm sure it was a delight for engineers listening in on that perspective. That made me book my first Tesla to really experiment that is it really an automotive or more of a new technology device. So again, a very big thank you to you for your time. I know it's crazy schedules and crazy times you all live in. And it's great to have this conversation with you. And Wipro is very proud of the partnership we have with you. And thank you for the trust and confidence you have in us. Thank you again for the time. And over to you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you.